Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I finally got out to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I gotta say, it's probably the best Marvel movie we've had in definitely a while. I would say at least since Shang-Chi, which I really enjoyed. I know some people didn't. But I would say this movie definitely is more of a return to form for Marvel. It's definitely more like comfort Marvel, you know? Like it's familiar, and it has the tone that we're all looking for. But before we go into my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested in science fiction and short stories, you can check out the link in the description below. You can buy my new book, The Chimera Prophecies and Other Short Stories, science fiction short stories that deal with identity and reality and how that affects us as a human and our human condition. So if you're interested in that, check the link down below. You can pre-order it on Amazon. Alright, so let's get into my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So the movie kind of opens right away. We get going with Adam Warlock injuring Rocket because he's working for the High Evolutionary, who's the main villain of the movie. So we get Adam Warlock in here, who was kind of teased at an end credit scene at the end of Guardians 2. And I gotta say, I like the character, but he's not really used very well in the movie. But I still think he's kind of funny in like an ironical way. But he's really powerful, and he looks really cool when he's flying in the air. So the whole movie is basically the origin story for Rocket, and the rest of the Guardians trying to save Rocket's life, which I think is really nice. It definitely has, a very sad sort of overtone on it, where I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever also was very kind of sad, but this is not as depressing, I think, as that movie was. This definitely has the sad overtone, but definitely infuses it with that Guardians humor and the characters that we love, which I think it just balances that tone out a lot better, whereas Black Panther Wakanda Forever I think was just too sad and we're too mournful, and then Thor Love and Thunder was just too goofy. So this I think has the right balance that I think we've all been kind of missing with the Marvel movies lately. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was just too ridiculous, and doesn't and also Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Neither of those really lived up to their titles. Their Quantumania there was no Quantum Mania. It was kind of, whatever. Multiverse of Madness, there was no really madness in the multiverse either. So I feel like those movies were kind of like, their titles were maybe poorly chosen. But this one definitely kind of feels like return to form for Marvel, and I think that's why it's doing really well, and everybody just wants to see a good, fun, entertaining Marvel film again. So I would say this definitely has that, but it is also very sad. The origin story of Rocket and the animal cruelty that goes into that is really tragic, and what happens with his friends is, makes you want to cry. And I love at the end where he, the whole time, throughout all of the Marvel movies, Rocket's always like, I'm not a raccoon. But by the end of the movie, he finally proclaims, my name's Rocket Raccoon. So I like that moment for Rocket. This movie also deals with the whole Peter Gamora thing. Obviously, this is a different version of Gamora than the one that we lost in Infinity War. This one does not know the Guardians, doesn't know her relationship with Peter. And Peter keeps saying, you don't remember? Well, of course she doesn't remember, because it never happened to her. So it's not that she doesn't remember, it's that it never happened to her, so she doesn't know. But I like that, she's definitely kind of a hardened version of Gamora. But by the end of the movie, they're not together, but she's softened a little bit. She understands why she could eventually have been maybe in love with Peter and a part of the Guardians. And I kind of like that. I like just this little subtle hint. And then Peter learns that, he doesn't need to be with a woman. He doesn't need that, affirmation of always needing a woman in his life, which obviously was, tied in with the mother issues because he lost his mother so young. And so I like the journey that we take Peter on in this movie as well. Mantis and Drax, I really liked them in the holiday special. They're still really good here. And they also even get their own little story arc, kind of. I don't really like making Drax so dumb all the time, but I do like his relationship with Mantis, and they're very sweet together. Nebula's awesome. I always love Nebula. I don't know, she doesn't really have much to do. I guess her character growth is seeing value in others that are not always, you know, like Mantis says, not everybody has to be completely smart and competent all the time. We have other value to us, right? Like Drax is just a loving, caring father type, and obviously Mantis has the empathy link, and so she's also loving. And so I think that's sort of Nebula's arc, is to just see people and appreciate people for who they are and not for what skills they bring to the table all the time. So I do like that as well. The High Evolutionary is, I would say, a decent villain. He's definitely a villain. I don't know, he doesn't really have any proper motivation behind why he wants everything to be perfect. He just does want everything to be perfect, and he does horrific things in order to achieve that purpose, which makes him a really good villain, but not necessarily a really good character. I think the actor does a great job with the performance. You really don't like him, but you also do see a lighter side to him in the earlier flashbacks. But I guess I just wish we would have had more of a purpose for why he needs things to be perfect, or to create this perfect, other than just pure hubris or something. So I don't really think he's the best character, but he's definitely is a decent villain. I don't know if he's the best of the Guardians villain. He's definitely better than Ronan. I think I like Ego the best still, just because I love Kurt Russell's performance and he's just so likable. But High Evolutionary is definitely a good evil villain. You really don't like him by the end of the movie. So I like that as well. The Sovereign are return in this, but they do nothing. Like, why are they here? We learn that they were created by the High Evolutionary, which I think is kind of weird. And again, Adam Warlock is here just to kind of be like a fumbling henchman. And then he's going to be on the team at the end credit scene, I guess. The new team. So, I don't know about any of that, though. I do like the moment where, towards the end, Gamora is holding up, like, the little pet that he has. And she's like, don't move or the pet gets it. And he's like, whoa, hold up. That's kind of funny. He's grown like this attachment to this little pet animal, but he can kill anybody else, but not the animal, right? So that's that's very real too. How people feel about their pets, obviously. So there's a lot of good stuff here. I think the tone is definitely more balanced. It definitely has some of that classic Guardians humor in it, which I think it's actually kind of even toned a little bit, like toned down some of the humor. Like, it's not as vulgar, I think, as it was in that first movie, and even the second movie. There's really no like gross type of jokes in here. There is the first F-bomb in a Marvel movie where he just says, "Open the effing door," and it's kind of just like a subtle way of just saying it. Like, you don't even think about it. You just open the door. So I like that. I kind of just slipped that in there a little bit. So this is definitely not really a movie you want to take little kids to, though. I definitely think this is PG-13, 13 and above only, just because of, not because of the F-bomb, but mostly because of the horrific stuff that happens with the animals and just the sort of sad overtone overall. It's definitely kind of got a weird structure to it, I think. We go to this weird fleshy planet thing that's kind of gross. And then we have this whole battle thing that ultimately results in not really anything, because then they have to go to this Counter-Earth place, which is kind of cool. We get to see like this Counter-Earth that's made up of the High Evolutionary's creatures and what it would be like if they evolved in relationship to how Earth has evolved. I thought that was kind of interesting take on it. But I would say I don't think the middle scene on the flesh planet, whatever, is as good as the breakout fight scene that we had in the first movie when they were in the prison. I think it could have been done a little bit better. We do get Nathan Fillion in here, who always works with James Gunn. He's a James Gunn alum, so it's kind of funny. I like his joke about, oh, I got one of those guys, one of those stupid guys. That's kind of fun. And I like seeing the Guardians work together with this new Gamora. We do get the return of Sylvester Stallone's character from the second movie. Doesn't really do anything in here, just as a glorified cameo. And a couple of those other Ravengers that we had at the funeral scene, they show up here. So, don't really do anything, but Gamora has been running with them since this new Gamora has returned. And then, so she goes back to them at the end of the movie. The end of the movie, Rocket is saved, and he comes back, and they want to set free all of the experimented, races that the High Evolutionary was experimenting on, and Rocket saves, all of the animals, because he knows what it was like to have been experimented on, and he doesn't, they don't deserve that, and they also don't deserve to die either. And then he sees, the little baby raccoons, which reminds him of him when he was a baby, and he realizes, hey, he is a raccoon, and he embraces that, finally. We also get Cosmo the dog in here. Doesn't really do too much, but it's kind of fun, this running joke between her and Kraglin, or Kraglin says she's a bad dog, and she's very offended by it. It's kind of a fun running joke, and then, of course, the punchline at the end is, she comes in to save him, and he says she's a good dog. So that's kind of fun. Kraglin has taken kind of over the Yondu, with the fin that controls the whistle thing, and he finally learns how to do it by the end of the movie. As much as I like Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, I loved him in Gilmore Girls, Kraglin's just never been, a great character. He's always kind of just a background character, and, trying to make him a member, I think, just feels kind of weird. He doesn't really feel like a main character type of character. Does that make sense? But I still, he's still fun to watch, though. So overall, I think this movie does a good job of balancing the humor with the sadness. I love learning Rocket's backstory. I think if you look at the first two movies and this movie, you see, especially if you go back and watch the first two movies after seeing this, you understand Rocket and, why he was the way he was, why he was so angry, why he, didn't want to accept the Guardians as his family in the second movie, that speech that he has with Yondu. You understand why he was so closed off to everybody because of what he went through with the High Evolutionary, and it's actually really sad. And there's a small subtle moment, but I do love when Nebula finds out that Rocket was saved, and she kind of just starts crying. It's a subtle moment, but I love that because if you think about it, they were the only two Guardians left during the blip. One of the best, I think, a great moment in the Endgame is when Nebula and Tony return, and Rocket just sits down next to Nebula, and they just hold hands, and it's so sweet. And so for years, they were the only two Guardians, and they were the only family they had. So I think it's really sweet that when he is alive, she starts to cry a little bit. So I do like that. That's a subtle sort of character moment for Nebula. Nebula's just a subtle character in general. She does get a cool moment at the beginning of the movie where she's got these angel wings on her, and she's flying, and then her new arm turns into some sort of weapon, and she's trying to take out Adam Warlock. So that was a cool moment. I don't know why she doesn't ever have those wings again. I don't know. But anyway, Nebula's awesome. The other thing is Peter, Quill, they kind of, going into this movie, there was a lot of speculation of, who's going to die? There was a rumor that, James Gunn filmed, several death scenes for different characters, and so nobody knew who was going to die. Well, spoilers alert, if you've seen the film, you know that none of them actually die. And so that was a little twist. But they do kind of get you a couple times. Obviously with the Rocket and Drax also. And even Gamora, you almost think at one point she might die. But they do get you really good with the Peter Quill scene where he flies off into space. He goes back for the Zune, but he doesn't quite make it across to the ship. And he ends up floating in space, and it's actually really gross because his face starts to swell, and I'm pretty sure he's dead at that point. Once your body starts to mutilate, you're dead. So I don't know how he came back from that. You could say maybe it's his celestial genes. I don't know. Adam Warlock saves him, But, one of the things I've been hearing about is, in the first, Guardians movie, Peter Quill, I think even the second movie, he had that cool, face shield helmet and the rocket boots, and that's how he could fly through space and not, and it was even a big thing, he took off the face thingy and he put it on Gamora to save her in the first movie, and, well, where are those in this movie? Why doesn't he have those? I mean, if it's something he could get a hold of, why wouldn't he have that? So that's kind of a little nitpick. He shouldn't be flying off into space or doing anything in space. He's a human without that protective gear and the rocket boots that could propel him across. So that was kind of, I wish they would had a better explanation for that. If he had it and then we saw it get broke and destroyed, that would have made more sense. Just to not have it at all is dumb. Where was it? Why doesn't he have it? There is a really cool fight scene in a hallway with the Guardians, all of the Guardians, and all these abomination creations that the High Evolutionary made, and it's a really cool fight scene. The other thing is, Guardians movies are always known for their music, and this movie I think is actually a little bit weaker on the music, I would say. I prefer the music from the first two movies, overall better. There's some really good songs in here, and I like that they end with the Florence and the Machine song, Dog Days Are Over. That's a good song to end with. And it's mostly a lot of 90s songs and a couple other random songs in here as well. But the soundtrack is good. It's always good. So that was good. And I think it was nice to just watch a Marvel movie and enjoy yourself and be entertained and not be kind of disappointed. And again, I think it's just the idea of that we're returning to these familiar characters. Phase 4 has been all about introducing a lot of new characters and new ideas and new concepts that just haven't really worked out. And so returning to the Guardians, just keeping it a simple Guardian story, I think is really what people wanted in Marvel right now. So I think that's why the movie really works really well. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I actually really enjoyed it. I do think it's a little too sad. It's not super rewatchable like the first one is. I don't know how I would rank the three movies. I'd have to watch this one again, probably. Because I do like the first one. I think it kind of falls apart at the end. And I do like the second one a lot. I think makes up for some of what I had complaints about the first one. But I think there is some problems with the second one. And I think this one is definitely on par. I would say, I don't know which ones are above the others. I would say the Guardians franchise is pretty even. They're all solid films. So I really like this one. I had enjoyed it. So if you have a chance, go out and check Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think most of the Marvel fans will enjoy this one. I think we've had some bad ones, and we all just want, again, that kind of comfort Marvel that we miss. So those are my thoughts on the movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel for more Marvel content. And until next time, you don't want to make things perfect. You just don't like things the way they were. Bye.